Good morning, good evening, and good night. Guys, welcome to the channel. Welcome to Foghorn 5. If you have ever been a victim of misinformation, go ahead and hit the subscribe button down below, because today that's exactly what we're going to be talking about. More specifically, we're going to be talking about AEG or HBA, HOPUP units, barrel assemblies, everything that's going to be going into the HOPUP assembly. The reason I say misinformation is because I was also a victim of that. There's a lot of incorrect knowledge that floats around about HOPUP units, how they work, how to upgrade them properly in proper performance. So today in this video, not only am I going to be kind of just breaking down and showing you guys what kind of goes into one of these for, somebody who may be new to Airsoft, what kind of things you're going to be hearing out there, people telling you like how to upgrade them that are incorrect. Because recently I went through a whole journey trying to mess with one of my guns and trying to get it to shoot a heavyweight BB, and I was, messing all with the HOPUP unit, and I was struggling because I kept finding incorrect information, trying that, it wouldn't work. Finally, I got to a point where I understand it, and anyone that's in my position, I'd like to help, because it's difficult and it's hard to know when you're new and you're trying to, figure stuff out. So a little bit of background of what I was trying to accomplish. This right here has been one of my bigger project guns that I've been working on for a while. So this right here is a SIG 552. Still currently working on it. My goal is to clone it. I'm gonna do a Swiss GIPG, Special Forces or Police clone for this total junker gun that I bought. I bought it for I think a little under $100, and it was completely just all beat up, and I've been working on refurbishing it for a while and restoring it. I powder coated it, repainted it all black, that kind of stuff. So yeah, I'm still in the works of finishing this clone, which eventually I'll make a video going into that. I usually play with a lot of shorter guns, so I want to bring that inner barrel all the way out to the suppressor, so the inner barrel actually comes all the way out here. I want to also be able to shoot really heavyweight BBs. A side note, this is a JG 552, so this is a older platform, a lot of older stuff going on, so I had to, kind of model a lot of it. That's where a lot of the trickiness came into. So I fell into a slump getting into the HOPUP unit and barrel assembly. So my goal is to shoot 3 2s at the minimum to 3 6 weight BBs. So I didn't have too much knowledge about HOPUP units. I was always under the assumption that the higher the degree of bucking and nub equals the heavier weight of a BB you could shoot, which is incorrect. I'm gonna go ahead and say that right now. That is the biggest lie that you're gonna hear all the time. It's a huge piece of misinformation. That's just not true. Just because you're choosing the highest degree of whatever it may be, bucking or nub, isn't gonna equal you shooting that heavier BB. There's a lot more that goes into it. I ended up buying a 80-degree bucking for this thing. I would shoot and my piston would get jammed. So the BB wasn't even passing through the HOPUP at the lowest hop setting, turning it all the way down. It would just basically putter out and essentially roll out of the barrel. It took a lot of figuring out to come to the conclusion, oh, it is the 80 degree. Because once again, this is a project gun, building it pretty much from the ground up. I had no idea what else could have been wrong with it. So it did take me a little bit to realize, oh, it's the bucking. And that's kind of what prompted me to make this video, because I'm like, oh, I wonder how many people have ran into this problem. To continue on with this video, I do want to actually get into a gun and show you the HOPUP unit. This gun, once again, is old and it's really obnoxious to work on, so we're gonna put this one aside and I'm just gonna take out my Mark 18. For the time being, for the people who don't know and are kind of lost to even the point that I'm talking about right now, we're gonna go ahead and show you guys the individual items that I'm talking about. Some of these items are pretty small, it's gonna be kind of hard to see, so I'll probably put some pictures up to show you guys, but first thing we got is our HOPUP unit itself. If you're unfamiliar what a HOPUP unit even is or does in your Airsoft gun, to get your BB to shoot further, it's not gonna have a straight curve, right? BBs don't have a straight curve as they fly, they kind of arch. You'll shoot and then it kind of arches and then it gets to its destination. So basically the way that's happening is this HOPUP unit is putting a backspin on the BB. As you twist this up or down, it's gonna create more or less of a backspin. It's kind of this game of cat and mouse that you have to play. If you're trying to shoot something really far, you might have to curve it up, so then your accuracy at the peak of its curve is going to reach really high and then fall to right where you want to hit it, right? So yeah, that is a HOPUP unit, that's what it does. So next up is gonna be your nub. I know this is really hard to see, I'm sorry guys, but basically in your HOPUP unit, there is an arm with a little Lego hand hook essentially. And so this nub is going to fit in that hook. As you turn that gear, it's going to push that nub further down or further up. The nub is actually what is being pushed down up against the BB when it leaves your barrel to create that flight path, right? For further demonstration, this right here is one of your hop-up arms, and I don't know if you can really tell, but there is that little hook right there that your nub is going to sit into. The next thing into your hop-up assembly is going to be your barrel. Most AEG barrels are going to have this little cutout right here and kind of like this line alongside it, so you can understand how to line up your hop-up unit. And the very last thing is going to be your bucking. So the reason I'm showing you the bucking last is because I think it's like the final piece to explain everything. So your hop-up arm is holding a nub that's going through your barrel window, right? Because that nub is just a small little piece of rubber, if it were to just freely sit right up against your window, it would obviously fall into your barrel and roll out, and then the system wouldn't work. It's basically a sleeve that's containing that nub from falling into your barrel, right? So basically the sleeve goes over the barrel, and then your nub is sitting on it, and then it pushes down in there. Technically, your nub isn't directly contacting your BB, your bucking is. Your bucking is actually the piece of rubber that is contacting it. So now that you guys have seen every component that goes into a hop-up unit, I'm gonna kind of show you guys what there is out there as far as differences and what there is for options to get better performance and to upgrade these parts. All right, and to demonstrate that, I'm gonna bust into my gun because all the parts I just showed you were stock parts. My gun right here actually has upgraded parts. So I'm gonna split the gun in half, put the lower side over here, and then we're gonna pull out my whole barrel and hop-up assembly. First things first, when we're looking at this, we're gonna go ahead and look at the hop-up unit itself. So when it comes to a hop-up unit, this might be something that people are kind of confused on, but the hop-up unit itself, it doesn't make any difference at all when it comes to upgrading your gun performance-wise. So all this really is just something to house the BBs getting fed into, shot out of, and creating that backspin on a BB. So truly there is no performance difference. So this right here is a max hop-up unit. This right here is probably like the most Gucci option you could go for. They're really expensive. A lot of people don't like them because they're so expensive and they don't really serve much of a purpose, but the max hop-up units are really cool. So right over here, we have a BB retention. So basically, any AEG or HPA owner has had a gun where you stick a mag in there and then you pull it out and BBs roll out, right? So this right here is going to stop that from rolling out, and you're gonna basically hit this lever up in your mag well. You hit the lever, and then when you want those BBs to roll out to fully clear your gun, they will. But if you're just swapping mags, you're not gonna have to worry about dropping BBs on the floor. So that is a cool plus. I really like this hop-up wheel because it actually has numbers on there, so you get a good understanding of setting it and knowing where you're at. You know, if you know, like, oh, there's two distances that I commonly fight at, I will set it to 8 and then I will set it to 4, you know, whatever. My final thing that I really like about these is it kind of has its own proprietary nub system that offers some benefits, which I will go into in a second. As I did say, there really is no point to upgrade, but once again, I think there is a threshold to upgrade just to, you know, get a little bit more longevity out of your gun. See how this hop-up system has a wheel right here that you turn? So that's actually what's lifting that arm up and down and creating that lift, right? So this is called a rotary hop-up. Another version of hop-up unit that you'll see is this. So it's not a rotary system, it's a gear. If you can, I definitely would swap out a gear system for a rotary system. This is a lot more complex to work on. There's a lot more parts that could break, and it's just not as well thought out of a design as this is. This is just way more simple, a little bit more robust, and a lot easier of something to work on. The next thing I would recommend when it comes to upgrading your hop-up unit just for longevity alone is to upgrade your hop-up unit from plastic to metal. Anything that's made out of metal is just obviously gonna last longer than plastic. There's a chance that, you know, ramming your magazines up into your gun enough can, you know, break this right here if it's plastic, the actual magazine feed lips. The airsoft world nowadays, you're usually going to get exactly this, a metal hop-up unit with a rotary system. So a lot of times you're not gonna have to worry about it. So now when it comes to upgrading your nub, this is just a standard round nub. This is from a stock gun, so I don't know what degree this is. It feels pretty soft, but the first upgrade you could obviously do is degrees. So degrees is something that applies to nubs and buckings. The biggest piece of misinformation that I hear about degrees when it comes to nubs and buckings, that they're thicker or thinner degrees of rubber. That's not what it is. Don't think of it that way, because I've heard people say, like, if an 80 degree is so much thicker than a 60, will I even be able to put it in my barrel or whatever? That's not how that works. That's not what it's saying. So what it's referring to, shore of rubber. So a softer or harder shore of rubber. The rubber feels more squishy or not. This little orange nub that I have right here, it's really squishy. I have this one right here, which I know is a 80-degree nub, which is very rigid. Yeah, the first thing you could do when it comes to upgrading your nub, what degree, right? You want a higher degree or lower degree, which we'll talk more about that in a minute once we kind of wrap this whole segment up. So as I said before, the max HOPUP units kind of have their own proprietary nub system, which I personally like. Alongside with upgrading your nub degree, what you could do is upgrade your nub shape. So a round nub isn't going to allow for as much surface contact to your BB as something like a flat nub. So a flat nub exists beyond just the max HOPUP units. So it's not only something in this, you could just get flat nubs for your standard HOPUP units, but this is the only flat nub I have, so I'm just kind of showing you guys. So if you were to get a flat nub in whatever degree you want, you're going to be able to create more lift of that BB because it has more of a surface area to touch, right? Continuing on to the max HOPUP unit nub systems, basically all their nubs come glued into these little scene-seed aluminum housings. It's easy to work on. A lot of times when you're working on a nub, you'll drop it and then it rolls into infinity and then you're kind of screwed because how small of a part it is. The arm is actually pushing up against this piece of metal, not the rubber itself. There's a lot more strength that's going behind the arm. The very last thing about the max HOP nub systems that I absolutely love is their metal nubs. So they actually have a nub that is fully metal and not rubber. So one thing to think about all these parts is these are parts that you should be interchanging in and out of your guns. This isn't something that you just stuff in your gun and it's gonna actually last forever. This nub right here, I actually used it a lot and it's flattened a lot more than it used to. Buckings, nubs, they're parts that you're gonna be changing in and out all the time. But the cool thing about the max metal nub, you'll never have to replace your nub again, but you will have to replace the bucking, which that's one thing down that you have to worry about replacing all the time. With the metal nub, just a tiny bit of increment will get you a lot more lift than these rubber ones. There are things to say about performance that a rubber nub generate a little bit more of lift with your BB because since it's actually rubber and it actually kind of moves to the shape of the BB, it's going to create a better contact area. But I'm not someone who's looking for peak performance. I'm somewhere in the middle where I'd rather just kind of be able to do whatever I can to just leave it set up and not have to touch it as much as possible, hence why I'm HPAing all my guns. So yeah, that's pretty much it for nubs. Next thing we're going to talk about are barrels. This right here is just a standard brass barrel that's going to come with pretty much any AEG. Upgrade to a stainless steel barrel. So this is a tight bore barrel. Basically what that means, this is machined out to be a closer fit to the diameter of the BB than this is, which is going to allow more accuracy. Brass is a very flimsy metal. If I were to take this and bend it up against my knee, I could easily do this with this. The stainless steel, that's not happening. I'm somebody who likes to work on my guns all the time. I don't ever take my guns to a mechanic. I want to ensure when I'm taking my gun apart that I'm not accidentally gonna drop it and then, you know, if I have a brass barrel in there, it's bent and I'm completely screwed. This is not going to bend out of shape. With all this being said, one of the number one things I would upgrade would just be your barrel alone. If you could leave everything else in your gun and get a new barrel, getting a tight bore stainless steel barrel is going to really show a big difference in improving your BB's reach, right? And the very last thing we're going to talk about is buckings. So as I already stated before, you're just going to be changing degrees of bucking. There's pretty much no other like variants of buckings like how these other items have. The only difference is there are some companies that make clear or more translucent ones, so it's kind of easier to see how to line up the bucking into your barrel window because there is an actual orientation that you need to properly put the bucking into the barrel. Okay, so now that I've gone ahead and showed you guys what there is out there to upgrade, the only thing I haven't touched on are S-hops and R-hops, which is a subject that I'm not talking about today because I have never had experience with them. They seem a little bit more complicated than what I want to personally do, and I'm completely fine with just using these standard systems. So with all that out of the way, what was my issue? Where did I go wrong and what happened with my train of thought and my thinking at the time? Very first thing, I wanted to shoot heavier weight BBs, right? What's the benefit of that? So first thing with BBs, lightweight BBs are obviously going to catch in the wind a lot easier. They're gonna, you know, lose their momentum a lot easier. A heavier weight BB is always going to be the best for distance and accuracy. I don't like to play indoors all that much. I play outdoors, so I'm always looking to improve that part of my experience. For as much debate that there is out there, because I know that there is a lot of debate, which BB actually does reach its target faster, a lighter weight BB is not going to reach its target faster. A lighter weight BB is going to leave the barrel faster than a heavier weight BB, but it's not going to reach that target. Once that lightweight BB leaves the barrel and hits the air, how light it is going to impact the drag of the air and actually slow it down, as opposed to a heavier weight BB, which is going to push through that drag. My recommendation, don't try to go lower than 30. And if you can get into 3.2 and 3.6, definitely do it. So with my SIG, I'm trying to shoot heavier BBs. So what I've always heard and what I've always understood is if you want to shoot a heavier weight BB, you need to have a higher degree bucking or nub, or both. So to me, that kind of made sense, because it's like, okay, you're shooting a heavier weight BB, right? So that means it's going to take more because it's a denser BB and it's heavier. So if your nub and your bucking is so little of a degree, then the BB is just essentially going to mold around it and it's not really going to do anything, right? But that is wrong. Where degree actually does come into play in that sense is just going to be the nub alone. The bucking is a totally different story, and this is where I was running into my issue. I paired a 80-degree nub, the highest degree of a nub that you could get, with an 80-degree bucking, the highest degree bucking that you could get. And with that combination, it is way too hard to shoot anything. It's going to jam the gun and it's going to stop the BB right in its tracks, which was happening with me. So when it comes to buckings, the lower and higher degree you use is actually going to increase or decrease performance. So it's kind of backwards. So the higher degree of a bucking you use is actually going to decrease the performance of your nub, because one, since it's so hard, it doesn't allow the BB to kind of warp to the shape. If you got like a 20 degree, it's so soft that it's actually going to cradle the shape of the BB and going to allow it to actually grab to that BB a bit more and create more backspin. With something like this, an 80 degree, it's actually going to defeat the purpose of even having a square nub, because it's so hard that it's just going to round that shape out again. The lower degree of a bucking you could get, say if we take that same square nub and we put a 40 degree bucking over it, now since that rubber is so malleable, it's actually going to take that proper shape and lift it more. So basically what it's coming down to when we're talking about just the bucking itself is truly just longevity, because the lower degree of a bucking you use is going to get beat up by that BB more, and you're gonna have to replace it sooner than a higher degree. Don't think about your bucking as lower degree equals lower weight BBs and higher degree equals higher weight BBs. It's about performance and longevity. So a lower degree is actually going to perform better, but you're gonna have to replace it sooner, and a higher degree is going to perform worse, but you're gonna have to replace it less. So there's a good medium. You know, a lot of people say 60 and 70 degree buckings is like a pretty good medium. I would say yes, but for the person who's looking to not have to tinker with their gun all the time, for the person who wants the absolute best performance and nothing else matters, I would go with a lower degree bucking, because it's going to cradle that BB more and it's actually going to allow more surface area to grab the BB as it's flying. So when you come down to choosing your bucking, just really think about it in that sense. How long do you want this thing to last, and how much performance are you willing to sacrifice? The harder it is, technically the worse it is. I mean, if you think about, like, if I took a ping pong ball and threw it on hardwood floor, only one point of that ping pong ball is going to actually hit that surface, as opposed to if I threw it at Jello, then, you know, the Jello is going to warp around it and actually grab more of one side of that surface. Going into nubs, so nub is actually where that understanding does come into play. A lower degree nub is actually only going to work for a lower weight BB, and a higher degree nub is actually going to really work for a higher weight BB. There is actually a point where if your nub is such a low degree and you're trying to shoot like 3.6s, that it doesn't even do anything. If you really are someone who's fine with tinkering with your gun and want the best performance, really like find that Goldilocks zone of where your nub is the perfect degree and where your bucking is a nice soft degree. It is truly creating the maximum amount of surface area to grab onto, because that is how you're truly going to get the best backspin and performance out of your HOPUP unit. But if you're somebody who doesn't want to tinker with your gun, as I already said, that much, even going for the highest degree nub isn't going to cause an issue. If you want to shoot heavyweight BBs and you want to get an 80 degree nub or even one of the max metal nubs, that's not going to be a problem. Just make sure you're getting the right bucking. And so my advice for buckings is when it comes to a gun that you're shooting like 500 FPS, like a sniper or maybe like a really intense DMR, that is finally the point where you could get into 80 degrees, because now the BB is leaving the gun at such a fast rate that it still is going to punch through. If you're just building out a standard AR that has to reach that, you know, standard field requirement, 70 degree if you really don't want to touch the gun that much, 60 if you kind of want a little bit more in the middle. Experiment with lower from that point on with a higher degree nub. See what performance that's gonna get out of that backspin, you know? I set my guns up to not have to be worked on all that much, so my maximum amount of hop that I can get out of my guns isn't very high, because like as compared, I've seen some really good setup guns where they can hop like it almost looks like just straight into the air, which is pretty crazy. So when it really comes down to trying to shoot far, you know, you want to think about precision stuff. And lastly, I want to briefly touch on a really easy modification that you could do to really increase accuracy as far as your BBs pulling left or right, or maybe up and down. How well of a fit is your inner barrel into your outer barrel? Sometimes they fit absolutely flawlessly. They'll fit right in and there's hardly any movement, but a lot of times you'll have a outer barrel that is a little bit bigger of a hole, so there is some wobble in there. Wrap Scotch tape around there, and what you wanna do is slowly increase it. So you wanna wrap a layer, stuff it in, see if it fits, wrap another, keep going until you hit that wall where it no longer fits. Take that last layer off and then leave it. One upgrade that's really cheap to do, really easy to do, and I find actually really effective is just that. It's super cheap, so why would you not? Even if you think that your barrel is a perfect fit, why not try it? Because you're going to, once again, be able to maximize the accuracy of your gun. I hope this video was concise. I hope it made sense. I hope you guys liked the video. I hope you guys understand what's going on in your HOPUP units a little bit better. We're all learning. I'm still learning. So if there's some things that I even said that you disagree with, go ahead and leave a comment down below. Let's, you know, talk about it. Let's figure out how to improve these things, because, you know, poking and prodding at the questions is what's going to get us to the final answer. And just because I had such a frustrating experience with my gun, I felt like it was good to make a video, because I'm sure there's plenty of people out there that have experienced that. So thanks everyone once again for just subscribing, for liking, for commenting, all that stuff. If there's any kinds of content that you guys are interested in, you know, definitely leave a comment, let us know. So yeah, make sure to go ahead and hit that bell, like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Let's have a debate in the comments about this topic, and I will catch you on the next one. See ya.